The birth of the Golden Princess. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trick, the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on Volume 17, Chapter 3. And yes, as I alluded to, we have in these chapters the birth of... I'm being YouTube safe here. Many people will call it the princess, but... yes, the Golden Princess has actually happened. The thing I predicted a while back has actually happened, and that is Ariel finally meeting somebody special. But yes, thank you everybody for dropping by for the premiere. Hey chat, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday after Mushoku Monday. As per usual, greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel through just kind words, supporting, sharing it out to your friends. And yes, especially to everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. All that stuff helps out a ton, keeps us all going. As you may have seen at the very beginning, we have a new arrival. Yes, I will have a video. I don't know, probably the video is already out by this point, but if not, there'll be a video out for my unboxing of the goddess herself has arrived, and she will be at my side as we continue to go through this series. I did have one thing that I thought of last Mushoku Monday that I kind of wanted to cover here. It was so funny as the part of the Mushoku Monday where it's going through talking about like how, you know, I keep thinking about the idea of why Rudius' descendants will eventually help Orsted fight against the man god. And during that time that came up, I'm like, well, simple answer. Maybe the man god deceived / hurt / killed Rudius. That would be crazy kind of ending to the whole thing. Is like it gets to the very last volume. Chat, shut up. It gets to the very last volume, and then it's like Rudius dies of the man god, and then it just like cuts forward, and suddenly here you have this, you know, all of his children are coming up, and they're charging to the white to kill the man god. But yes, that technically does go along with the theory that, yeah, Rudius is not the hero. They are. He creates them, and yes, will be eventually the driving force of them. Who knows? Yes, with all that said, let's just jump right into this juicy little bit of chapters. Some good stuff in here. Had a lot of fun. I've only read 3 and 4. If, as per usual, we get to 4 and there's not enough here, we'll continue on. But I think there's, at least page-wise, enough here. But yeah, there's a lot of juicy conversation happening in these chapters, so I'm sure this will probably be a whole Mushoku Monday in itself. So with that said, Chapter 3, Suspicion and Theories. Or suspicions. An hour after they were attacked, they pitched up a camp, fairly deep in the woods, to have a strategy meeting. Rudius encircled the camp with a low wall to keep the light from giving off their location. This can't be happening. It doesn't make any sense. Luke muttered to himself in disbelief. He'd been struggling over this since he had seen the armor. Rudius wondered why he was so surprised. Palmon being his father probably had something to do with it, but it could also be the man god whispering half-truths in his ear as well. Maybe he just found out that his new friend wasn't entirely honest with him. It was plausible. The man god tended to keep a lot of things to himself, especially when the facts were inconvenient. Yeah, I don't... Again, if Luke is... Again, I'm at this point just thinking that it's giving so much emphasis on Luke that I don't think it's going to be Luke. And at this point, I'm more leaning to Ariel than anything, just to be a kind of a shocker. Rudius felt like this was a good chance to confirm his suspicions. No, not yet. He needed to get the conversation moving in the right direction first. In contrast, Ariel and her other allies seem to have seen this possibility all along. Yeah, it's one of those things where I can see Luke being, yes, that being his father, and it didn't really give too much of an indication like they trust each other. Like, even here in a minute, Ariel kind of confirms that. This idea that, yeah, you don't really trust your father that much, do you? You're not that connected with him. I think what they mention later on is this idea that, yeah, you even told me not to trust him. So it's like, Luke, you see that. So that is sort of one thing that is keeping me in line with the idea that the man god could be talking to Luke, because Luke should have seen this coming. Luke literally warned her, and thus the only thing that would offset that is, yes, if somebody was telling him everything's gonna be good, he's still working with Ariel. But yeah, Ariel's like, she knows the politics. She knows these people are gonna cut and run the first moment they have. And yes, she knows full well that I've been up in Renoa this whole time. People are not going to stick with their faith with me because they're left alone. Right now, they're technically abandoned from me as a support figure. Rudius spoke up. Your Highness, there's something we should discuss. Yes, Rudius, what is it? Auber shouted, we'll have to try this one again, as he fled. I think it's very likely that he'll be launching repeated ambushes on us at some point in the forest, and maybe even after we cross the border. Yes, I imagine so. She tilted her head slightly. What's your point? We managed to ward him off this time, but Auber seems to be more dangerous than I expected, and he has a lot of troops at his disposal. It looks like they're deadly serious about taking you out. I think their next ambush will be much more carefully planned out and dangerous. You think we might not prevail? It's hard to say for sure at the moment, but I expect their next attack to come right at the border fortress itself. They can easily lay a trap for us there, and it won't be easy to break through by force. Perhaps so, but there's no teleportation circles within Nasra. We have no choice but to press forward. The conversation was going as he hoped. He's like, yes, exactly. I got an idea. Ariel was making it easy for him, as it felt like she had already suspected what he was getting at. I think what I've kind of found with this chapter itself is, granted, we haven't had too much moments with Ariel to really get a sense of how she thinks about things. Yes, there's like those conversations that were more personal with her and Rudius kind of talking about things. But this is like where you kind of see her strategy. I don't think we've really gotten a good sense of that kind of idea. Right, we do need to press on, but that doesn't mean we have to blunder right through a trap that we know is waiting for us. Oh, are you saying there might be some way that we can cross the border without passing through the border checkpoint? Yes. What did you have in mind? I'm familiar with a group of bandits based nearby that primarily makes its living on smuggling goods and trading slaves across the border. With their assistance, we could make it to Asra without moving through the checkpoint. As Ariel considered this, Sylphie stared at Rudius with a slightly dubious look. Edis and Ghislaine didn't seem to be paying attention. Edis is over there like, yeah, whatever Rudius wants to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you previously argue that we should avoid resorting to shady business? Yes, and I still feel that way. But I think I misjudged how serious the predicament is. I don't think we can afford to be choosy about our methods at the moment. I see. Ariel nodded and gazed at Sylphie, who was frowning slightly. What do you think, Sylphie? It sounds reasonable to me. I don't know how much we can trust these bandits, but I do trust Rudy's judgment. Now you do? It's like, now you do? I think this is the first time she's trusted his judgment in a while. It's kind of surprising. Honestly, when I got to this part, I kind of suspected that Sylphie would push back again. Because again, a lot of her issue right now is trusting Rudius because she sees Orsted behind it. But I don't know, maybe she's finally coming around to trusting him. If he says it's less dangerous that way, I believe him. Sylphie has some displeasure in her voice. It still sounded like she was upset. She may just be upset that he didn't mention any of this beforehand. But a suspicion would be on him if he did, and Auber's appearance pushed him in the right direction. And what about you, Luke? Looking to Luke, he raised his head slowly, almost like a zombie. His eyes were fixed on Rudius, with something like hostility in them. Ooh, things get crazy right here. What are you playing at here, Rudius? His voice was trembling slightly, suspicion clearly on his face. Your behavior in battle was strange. It felt as if you knew Auber was going to launch a sneak attack. I anticipated that he might try something, yeah. It almost seemed like you knew all of his combat styles. Well, I do have fire foresight, remember? Rudius thought, and why do you know all this anyways, Luke? You were supposed to be watching our backs. Auber was in your blind spot, wasn't he? He's like, you idiot. Auber certainly retreated quickly from the battle, and cleanly. True, I imagine it would have played out differently if he had managed to kill me with his first strike. Couldn't you have stopped him from escaping if you really wanted to? Maybe, if I used a spell that was large enough with an area effect, but I would have hit Edis and Ghislaine as well, and there's a good chance they would have escaped anyways, thanks to that weird magic cloak of his. If you say so. It's like, what, did you want me to die? There is like an idea here where it's like, okay, Luke is presenting, it seemed like you knew that Auber was going to be there. Because yes, Rudius was just standing there. He wasn't getting involved with anything because Orsted told him not to cast any spells. He's going to strike the moment you cast a spell. But Rudius was forced to have to do something, and that's when Auber came out after him. And it's one of those frustrating things of like, okay, Auber obviously went straight for me, and you're implying that I knew about him being there and that somehow they're in cahoots? It's like, yeah, because totally whenever you have a planned out stage thing, they come after you, right? Because you're supposed to die, right? I guess there's an idea that Rudius is, it could be a setup in the idea that Rudius is feigning that he would come after him, thus that would get rid of all suspicion of Rudius. Like this was all planned just to make Rudius not look like the bad guy. Like he's not a traitor. Obviously we can trust him now because the enemy went straight for him. But I mean, there is still that curious question mark of the fact that yes, Auber went straight for Rudius. Rudius was the biggest threat, and yes, Auber probably could have taken out, it wouldn't have been Ariel, but, you know, was it Clanoi that was actually dressed up as Ariel at the time? He could have gone after them, but he was trying to get rid of the biggest threat first, before he assessed the rest of it. That was the important target. But there is like a sense here again, kind of tilting me back towards the idea of Luke working with the Man God, in the idea that there's a chance the Man God may have told him, Auber's going to come there and get rid of Rudius, because he's going to betray you. So we need to get rid of him, let Auber kill Rudius. And he could be frustrated right here, but I don't think it is. Again, I think this is too much leaning into Luke. Now he was making it sound like Rudius was working for Auber. Well, that made sense. Rudius could see the Man God telling Luke he was working for them, but Luke could see how that was wrong if he thought about it for at least 5 minutes. Still, it felt as if he was lashing out because he was upset about his dad trying to kill them. Yeah, there's a big possibility there. It's just literally there. It's a frustration thing. Like, he's lashing out because he's frustrated, but you can see it almost in a logical thinking in the idea of, I need to push away that suspicion to me because we just literally seen that my dad is trying to kill them, and yes, it's my dad. But I don't think it doesn't seem like it's playing out that way. Come on, Luke. You were the one that asked me to help Princess Ariel, remember? I did, yes. But none of this makes any sense. Why did my father betray us? It wasn't supposed to be that way. This was getting stranger by the second. It made it more apparent that the man god told Luke something, although it was hard to say what. Wait, there was a chance the man god couldn't see Luke right now. Reese was wearing the bracelet Orsha gave him, which served as a sort of jammer against the man god's sight. That could mean that he foretold events inaccurately in his conversation with Luke. That is true. I didn't really think about that. Them being kind of close in proximity right now, like this whole trip, the man god can't see anything. Another possibility is that the man god decided Luke wasn't useful anymore and abandoned him. Yes, something to say or what? Edis was glaring at Luke, seemingly on the verge of taking a swing. Somebody questioning her boy. Sylvie didn't say anything, but her eyes were darting warily from Luke to Rudius. Your Highness, I am opposed to this plan. Rudius' behavior makes me fear that he's hiding something. Does it? We have no proof whatsoever that these bandits are trustworthy. I agree that it'd be unwise to pass through the checkpoint, but I think our best option is to turn back now and ask Lord Pedagus for assistance. There was logic in asking Pedagus for help. He could offer a handful of servants to overwhelm their enemy. If Ariel made it through alive, Rudius didn't mind it either way. The bandit plan was only to meet up with Triss, and Rudius could easily handle that on his own. But Ariel could get assassinated in his absence. Alamoy, Cleone, what do the two of you think? Sir Luke has my support. And mine. I see. Well, that made 3 on 2. In the end, it was Ariel's choice. If she chose to go against him, he'd just go see Triss himself. Maybe even scout Asura while they double back. Ariel, of course, didn't ask Ghislaine or Edis for their opinions. Instead, fell silent. Yeah, I don't see her asking Edis and Ghislaine their opinion. Maybe Ghislaine, like, if I was Ariel, I would probably ask Ghislaine. I don't think I would take... It would depend on how Ghislaine responds. But yes, Ghislaine would probably has literally in this group, has the most experience in travel. Yes, Rudius is like way up there, but of the people in that area, Ghislaine is the one that would probably be the one to ask because she has been spending most of her life traveling around the world. She knows checkpoints. She knows how a lot of this stuff plays out. She's probably dealt with a lot of bandits, a lot of group of people, a lot of assassins. She's dealt with a lot of this stuff. And yes, she was protecting Edis for the longest time, living in Asura, being technically a bodyguard for a noble family. She's got probably the most, again, depending on what she says, she's not the smartest, but she at least has experience. So I could see asking her opinion, but yeah, I don't see much opinion. I don't see Ariel herself caring much for Edis's opinion. Plus the fact that, and yes, it kind of confirms it later, she just knows that Edis is immediately going to say, yes, Rudius. Whatever Rudius said, go with that. I don't know what he said, but just go with Rudius. It's like absolute trust. After a while, she spoke up. All right, we're going to go with Rudius's plan. What? But why? I don't believe Lord Pedagus will be inclined to recognize a woman who fled to safety at the first sign of trouble as the rightful queen of Asura. We mustn't turn to him unless it's absolutely necessary. I agree with that. That's a good question mark. If they went back right now, would Pedagus help them in any way? I want to say yes. But there is a side of me that is in that realm of him going, I really, already you need me to help you out more? Like, could you not handle this yourself? I don't know. That's a very good question. I would see that he would, but I don't know. I think it would take too much time is the problem. That's the problem. I think it would take too much time. But again, my original opinion was just to do from not Orsted and Rudius's once, because again, they want to get Triss. From Pedagus and Ariel's perspective, I would assume that Ariel will be like, this thing floats, right? It's been above Asura before. How long does it take to get over there? Now, it could be that the floating fortress takes a long time to travel. But yeah, she glanced back at Rudius. He wasn't sure what the message was in her gaze. Was she taking his side for a reason? He didn't entirely understand. We'll know why later on. The whole thing made him feel a little uneasy. But with this plan, you're risking your very life. Are we really going to turn to bandits for help instead? For all we know, Rudius is planning to sell you to them as... Luke, what does it matter with you all of a sudden? You can't really believe that Rudius would do such a thing, can you? But my father, Lord Paimon, has likely betrayed us. Yes, but we'd always known that was a possibility. You yourself once warned me that he might do something under certain circumstances. Well, yes, perhaps I did. But I know that I heard that he... Luke stopped abruptly and brought his hand to his mouth. He slipped. It slipped. I don't know. I have my suspicions that... Again, yes, the easy option here is the man god told him something and it's not turning out how he was told by the man god. And so it doesn't make sense to him. Again, this is definitely pushing in that direction, but it could simply be that he does have an informant. I mean, his whole thing is getting information by, going around with different women and getting the gossip from them and whatnot. And yes, apparently he does have a lot of connection with certain people that we haven't really seen him in action with. But yeah, he slipped something here. Rudius blinked in surprise. Ariel's eyes went wide and her lips trembled slightly. Luke, I don't even want to consider this, but has my brother... Ariel trailed off, leaving the rest unspoken. She would be accusing Luke of disloyalty in completing that sentence. There was a chance that she'd be forced to break her ties with him. Instead, she found a less risky approach. Luke Nodos Greyrat, tell me what you are. Luke looked up, glanced to Sylphie and the two attendants before returning to Ariel. He then kneeled before Ariel. I am your knight. That's correct. I am your princess. I do feel bad for this guy. As much as it feels like interesting in the idea of pushing him in the direction of being a disciple of the man god. It's like at this point, I kind of feel bad for the dude because he, again, my opinion that I quickly brewed. I don't think I had it at the very beginning. The opinion that I quickly brewed was this idea that I think that he is obviously being whispered things by the man god, and those things are telling him this is best for her. Do this for her. If you do this, she will succeed. And he's going, I will do it because I want her to succeed. The two of them almost seemed rejuvenated in that moment, figuring out what mattered most. Nothing else mattered. Sylphie and the others seemed relieved as well. Those two had a special bond. That much was true. Well then, let's get moving right away. Rudius, will you lead the way? All right. In the end, they would be seeking help from the bandits. Luke wasn't about to betray them. Still, Rudius felt even more uneasy than before. Yeah, that slip up, I think that slip up is the biggest thing right there, and I think that's what kind of leads to what Ariel does later. Obviously, because she brings up Luke. That conversation had confirmed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Luke was a disciple of the man god. Or you mean, it's a little bit of misdirection, I think. They went back to the main road and followed it, until Rudius spotted a certain mark on the roadside. From there, they'd be going east, to the edge of the forest where the bandits made their home, under a steep rock face at the foot of the mountain. Once in the forest, their travel slowed down, due to them having to take apart the carriage, and Ariel needing to go on foot for a while in order to avoid being thrown off a horse. There was also issues with navigating through the thick forest, pulling horses along and forcing through. It led Rudius to have to blast through sometimes with magic. It wasn't the best idea, as it was a sign that they were there, but they were leaving plenty of traces behind, like the bodies of the monsters they defeated. Their group was large, and not masters of stealth, so there wasn't any point in worrying about that. Yeah, I think if they have at least a competent tracker, there's going to be really no way they're going to travel through here without something being left behind, even like brushing against a twig. They stopped numerous times, for Ariel's sake mostly. She wasn't used to this kind of terrain. Still, she took the pain stoically. Sylphie would heal her legs with healing magic, and after a brief moment, they'd be back on the trail. They barely spoke, and the absence of conversation made Rudius' thoughts wander, namely to the man god, his disciples, and the things that he might have told them. Specifically, what he may have told Luke. Based on experience, the man god didn't hand out hints that frequently. Sometimes he repeatedly show up in a brief span, but most of his visits were spaced out annually. Assuming the same was true for Luke, he probably got one prophecy so far, maybe two. Yeah, that's definitely true, because I remember for a while there, it felt like the visits from the man gods were like, oh gosh, it's a man god chapter. And then we got like, especially with the whole thing with like, especially Turning Point 4, it's like, bam, 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 bam. Like he's constantly like pressing redial on Rudius over and over again because he's having to like pivot it. And I think that's to the credit of this idea of the turning points, and that he's setting up things at the very beginning and assuming it's going to go this route. And sometimes, yeah, it doesn't go that route, but he just sets it in motion, and it goes. And I think there's an aspect probably, especially since it kind of points out here in a minute, how, trying to control multiple at the same time probably causes a lot of problems, that ripple effect, that they kind of cause issues for each other, that he might not want to mess with it too much, because it could just make it very hard for him to kind of see the overall conclusion. One could have been Luke coming to ask Rudius for help with Ariel. The man god could have told him, go ask Rudius to join your forces. It will work out in Ariel's advantage. I haven't got to use his voice in forever. It would explain his actions at the time. Based on Luke's, I kind of wonder when the next time that he's actually going to be visited by the man god, because again, that bracelet's supposed to be helping him. So it's probably going to be one of those things where at some point Rudius is going to be fighting somebody, and that bracelet's going to get hit. It's going to shatter off, and he's going to be like, crap, dang. And he's not going to even realize it. And then suddenly, bam. the man god's gonna grab him. The man god's just gonna immediately grab him and just pull him right in there. It would explain his actions at the time. Based on Luke's actions today, it felt like he got another visit or two afterwards. This time, he snapped at Rudius at every opportunity, seemingly convinced that he was a culprit behind everything going wrong. Maybe the man god told him, Rudius is planning to seize control of the Noto's house, or something. Rudius had no interest in that. He wouldn't be living in Shiraya if he gave a damn about Austrian politics. He also avoided Ariel for years because he didn't want to get mixed up in all that. That said, Luke might feel very differently. Everyone thinks whatever they want is incredibly valuable, right? That's a very good point. It's like one of those things where, like, I've had times in the past where it's like somebody gets so worked up because I have an opinion of something, and it's like, I really don't care. Like, I know it's very important to you, but I really don't care. And it just doesn't seem to click with them. They just think that you have some other, like, reason for what you're doing. And it's like, no, I just don't care. I don't want what you want. And if you hear that somebody wants to steal it from you, you'll probably get suspicious. Wait, did that mean that Luke was trying to be the next head of the Nose family? Reese would never have guessed that, to be honest. There was no point in speculating endlessly. He'd just have to wait for more information. Now, curious question. He wanted to be the next house of the Notos family. I don't think that's true unless he could still remain at Ariel's side. It is true that technically he could remain at Ariel's side even if he's the head of the family, but I would think being at Ariel's side would prevent him from being able to do the activities that he would need to do as the head of the Nose family. Now, Paimon probably wanted Luke to be the head. I don't have a full glimpse of everybody in the Notos family, but I would assume that he has some kind of, especially if Ariel becomes queen, I'm for dang sure that Paimon would want him to be the next. But again, I don't think that he'd be able to do what he's doing, which is being at Ariel's side if he's the head of the family. So I don't think that's true, if that's the case. What about Darius? Orsa was convinced that he was a second disciple, and Rudius inclined to agree. What was the man god whispering in his ear? He probably warned him that Ariel was on her way. Ariel believed that Darius would anticipate her return the moment that the king fell ill, but it seemed unlikely that he would dispatch a force this strong on a hunch. This is extremely true because it wasn't that big of a span of time between the moment that he fell ill and Ariel and them started moving. Would they have like not even a week? So for him to have everybody here, two very skilled swordsmen at least, and a massive group of forces to be here right now, they would have had to have known beforehand, not at the point that she left. So even though she had like a pretty big send-off, I don't think word would have gotten back that quickly and those troops would be dispatched that quickly. It just doesn't seem like that would have happened. Because even Osra, I think, is like way over in the west side in the central point of this massive region, or this valley. So they would have to travel all the way up there to that border. So it's not like a quick trip. And again, Ariel and all them went from literally Renoa, maybe traveled a little bit to get to some ruins, and then teleported right down to the border. They got there quick. So again, I think they knew before even Ariel left. Probably sent the troops the moment they heard that he was ill. So yes, technically, it could be that they heard that he was ill, and they immediately sent the troops there because they knew that Ariel would probably get word and be coming back. Or again, the likelier thing is that Darius, which I'm thinking Darius for 100% is probably going to be a disciple, because again, he's also the one that's going to be responsible for taking out all the teleportation circles. So knowing that she had the ability to do that, and having the troops there in time, Darius, I think, is pretty much 99%, in my opinion, going to be a disciple. The North Emperor Aber and the North King Wyah were both key weapons at his arsenal. Would he send them unless he knew for a fact that Ariel was coming? The safer move would be to keep them close to discourage the second prince from trying anything. I think there's like a deeper aspect that, again, this goes into the idea of Darius being a disciple, is that, yes, he could have kept them close and it would still deal with Ariel, but I think the fear here is that she's going to show up and she's going to have Pedagus's help. So you need to get rid of her before she gets there. So that would explain why she would sit. And again, Orsid has already kind of pushed the idea that the second prince isn't an issue here. Reese keeps thinking that the second prince should be an issue, but Orsid is like, no, the second prince, no, is not an issue. They also had teleported to this forest. It was hard to say how fast information traveled from Shiraya to Osra, but it seemed impossible that he had sent those two up here after hearing about Ariel's departure. Then there was the fact that Aber went straight for Rudius, instead of killing Ariel. Good point. They seemed to be aware of who he was and his abilities. Was Darius' real target Rudius rather than Ariel's? It probably didn't matter either way. They were both dangerous to Darius and the man god. There was no need to manipulate a man like Luke. The man god just had to provide him with accurate information. Yeah, that's the biggest question mark there, and I think that's really an aspect that I think overall, it could be that the man god told Darius, I need you to take out Rudius. Specifically Rudius. Then after that, worry about Ariel. But the first priority is take out Rudius, because if Rudius is with them, you will never take out Ariel. And so that could be a route that he would take in order to push that. But again, there is a side of this that could just simply be that Auber did a little bit of info, seeking and realized that Rudius was the biggest target. And again, there's still the chance that Auber is a disciple as well. Or simply that, yes, Auber was told by the man god, if you don't kill Rudius, he will kill you. So let that be your priority. You will when you get it. The identity of the third disciple was unclear. Maybe Palmon, who betrayed Ariel? Probably not. The feature diary had Edis staying at Palmon's mansion. Edis was a member of the Boreas family, who were loyal to the first prince. That seemed to imply that Palmon would have betrayed Ariel no matter what. Yeah, that was kind of what I was seeing. Plus, in terms of capability and influence, Palmon was basically a less useful version of Darius. It all made it unlikely the man god chose Palmon. Yeah, I don't see enough here for Palmon, specifically. As for Auber, from the sound of things, he brought Wyah along because he knew who was in the party, and was wary of Rudius, though Darius could have given that information to him. It seemed premature to make conclusions about Auber based on a single meeting. In the end, they'll probably have to kill him. Yeah, that's a good point. The idea of even bothering with Auber. I guess the idea here is just focus on the bigger picture, like the higher ups, because yeah, technically everybody's going to do whatever they command them. If Darius essentially hires Auber, Auber's going to do whatever he tells him. He's going to tell him, you will go out there, kill Rudius first. He is the biggest threat. Then kill Ariel. And that's what Auber's going to do. And he already knows who Rudius is. Oh, that's that one that girl keeps talking about. So it makes sense. And yes, technically, Edis did talk him up with Auber. So the moment that Darius says, kill him first, he's the biggest threat. The man god told me. He's not going to say the man god told him. I hear that he's the biggest threat. He's going to go, oh, that guy. Yeah. So maybe what she was saying was true. I should be careful. After all the thinking, sadly, Rudius reached no real conclusions. Speaking of Auber, though, that guy had a bizarre combat style, clearly carrying all sorts of strange items, magical or otherwise. He knew exactly how to use them. Even still, Ors had said that he was a formidable foe in ordinary sword fight. Seeing him in person was different than everything he had been told. Rudius didn't feel that he could let his guard down or make any glaring mistakes. He'd have to take him down for good the next time they met. Orson had warned him that Auber was practically impossible to track down once you lost sight of him. Despite his colorful costume, he was capable of somehow melting into the trees. He'd earned his title, clearly. He was less like a North Emperor or a Peacock Blade and more a ninja master. Reese hadn't expected to meet any of those kind of guys in this world. It was really a place full of surprises. He'd have to work on making some sort of pepper bomb or some oil capsules of his own. He's like, cool, you could do that kind of stuff in this world. I kind of want to make that stuff too. So like cut forward, he's going to be throwing like pepper bombs in people's faces. He's like, yeah, cool. This thing works really well. That would be interesting. I wonder how, like, granted, it's simple as the idea of, like, taking a lot of peppers and stuff like that and putting in a capsule, but it'd be interesting to kind of see how we kind of apply that stuff. Damn ninjas. Evening following, they had to make up camp, and Rudius had a meeting with Orsted.
So, Auber got away then?
Yes, I'm sorry. I know you told me how to handle him, but...
It's alright. It takes time to put advice into practice. And once Auber decided to flee, you had essentially no chance of catching him.
Auber had so many tricks at his disposal. It was hard to anticipate them all perfectly. With that in mind, Rudius wondered why Orsted didn't just go and kill him himself. It probably wasn't wise to ask too much of the boss. Leaning on him constantly would not be good in the long run. Dealing with Auber was a job that Orsted delegated to him. He needed to find a way of getting it done. It's like, darn it, the moment I got to this part, I'm like, yes, he's gonna ask, why don't you just kill them all? Again, I more lean on the idea that I think it's just Orsted doesn't want to get involved because he's still recuperating his mana, and if Rudius does it... And yeah, I do agree with the idea that I think that there is an element here of Orsted seeing if Rudius is actually useful. Like, this is a test. But it almost feels like the way that he says that, it almost feels like Orsted is literally trying to make Rudius his pupil. Like, he wants to help Rudius get stronger and help Rudius learn how to survive. Like, he says, literally, it takes time to put advice into practice. Like, he's being understanding of Rudius and saying, yeah, you'll figure it out eventually. You'll figure these things out. I'm going to help you out kind of thing. Rudius says it too. Like, man, this guy's a good boss. What was the deal with that Wyah guy, though?
I suppose someone must have summoned him here. It was likely the man god's suggestion.
Do you have any information on him?
They call him Light and Darkness. He's a North King with a bizarre style and a pupil of Kalman III.
That's interesting.
I believe he served the Notos family for many years as a bodyguard.
Rudius wondered if he had taught Paul to fight back in the day. This is interesting. This is actually very interesting because, man, way back there. Volume 1. One of the things that stood out the most to me when it comes to Rudius learning from Paul was one aspect that, yes, it seemed like everything that how Rudius is at this point, and it's even hit on it at some point here recently, and we talked about it, is that even up until this point in Rudius' life, he still is, his combat is formed through what he went through with Paul. Paul taught him so much in that little brief time, literally almost pushing him to learn how to navigate with his abilities, his spells. And even I kind of alluded to at some point that there's a possibility he never got a battle aura because he was so focused on fighting Paul using magic to save himself rather than a battle aura. But yes, one of the things that stood out way back then was the fact that Paul basically pointed out these 3 styles. And he was focusing on teaching Rudius this one way. North style, he didn't like. Rudius is like, it doesn't seem like Paul likes this style. It kind of gives this indication that he didn't like it. He kind of, I think the quote was, he specifically said something to the effect of, North style isn't really a style. Like, it's just a bunch of gimmicks and tricks that uses a sword. Like, it almost makes this idea that he thinks that you just have a bunch of tricks that you're doing, and, you also have a sword. Like, a sword is an afterthought. And Paul was always about crafting his swordsman skill, it seemed like. So, yeah, it could have been that he, at some point, learned something from this particular guy. He may have known Wyah, and that's probably how he got his ideas about what the North style is like. And it probably wasn't a good impression on him, this little dude, this little disco ball.
As his name suggests, he is a master of optical trickery. During the daytime, he uses his polished armor as a mirror to blind his enemies. At night, he covers himself in ink and uses thick black smoke to hide himself in the darkness. You'll want to make his armor dirty in the day, or light up the areas with fire magic at night.
Makes sense. Yeah, at the time I was kind of thinking more in the idea that I was curious why Ghislaine didn't pick up on that very quickly and try to get him into the forest. But it is one of those aspects that you kind of can't. Like, you can't drag him into the forest. He's going to be at his own, he's going to keep her at a distance. And the moment that she goes in the forest, he might not follow her. Is that difficulty there? Now, if she had some sort of ranged weapon, yeah, she can go in the forest and throw it at him and lure him that way. Reese thought he didn't seem intimidating once you knew his gimmicks.
As long as you counteract his tactics, Edis or Ghislaine should be able to handle him. But be aware that his skill with a sword is genuine. Don't let your guard down for an instant.
It made sense that he was more than his gimmicks. You couldn't make it as a North King on those alone.
In any case, I doubt Wyah is the only one they summoned. I'd expect they've hired others as well.
Other North King level masters?
I wouldn't expect any Sword Kings, but you might encounter Water Kings, Water Saints, and perhaps a Sword Saint.
You think they hired every swordmaster they can get in order to overwhelm us with numbers?
I doubt Darius would spend so lavishly on other bodyguards with the water god already at his side. I would guess that there's another one, or 2 at worst.
The water god was their ultimate trump card. It would have made sense they got a little cocky after securing her services. The man guy might be pestering him to bolster up his forces further, but Darius could have brushed that advice off. That makes sense. Like, yeah, again, going back to that earlier comment made in the idea that, yes, why would they send them over here to kill Ariel when they could just wait for her to come to them and then kill her when she arrives? But yes, the idea there is that if they arrive and Pedagoose drops down with them, they got no chance. They need to stop her before she gets there. Plus, it could cause a lot of people to uprise and look bad on them if they, assassinate her in public. But again, if they have the water god at their side, it's like, he ain't got no fear. She's like, she's standing right here. Nothing gonna happen to me.
However, all the 3 blades of the North God should be in Asra at this time. There's a possibility they were hired as a group.
The 3 blades of the North God? I don't think I've ever heard of them before.
Ah, yes. I'll explain.
This is the title a group of 4 top-class North God swordsmen gave themselves as a way of asserting their supremacy. All of them used particularly strange techniques and had a strong craving for the spotlight. Orsted listed each member and made comments about how to deal with them before moving on. It's like, yeah, okay, I guess later on this volume or something, suddenly it's going to go, oh, this is the one that Orsted told me about, one of the 4. It's like, no, we're not going to get into him now. Damn it. So, what do you think about the situation with Luke?
It's a positive sign. Because he has a gift of foresight, the man god is inexperienced at conventional prediction. When he manipulates multiple disciples at once, it's common for him to undermine himself in this way.
Basically, he was giving advice without thinking about the effects that each would have on each other. Luke's stunned reaction suggests an inconsistency with the advice that Darius and Auber may have received. this kind of goes back to earlier. Yeah, this totally makes sense in the idea that if you have these 3 players and you have, again, that end point, and he gives them each advice, or, they might give him advice to them at separate moments, but eventually they all are going to convene to this one point. And by giving this one advice to say, hey, I want you to buy out all the ice cream over at this location. And then you tell this one, hey, I want you to get milk or whatever. And then they go get the milk, but the milk's been all used for the ice cream. They can essentially affect each other in some way. It's a dumb analogy, but you get what I'm talking about. You get what I'm talking about. Buy a bunch of omelets. Oh, go buy eggs. The eggs are gone because all omelets have been used. There you go. There's a better one. But again, with how vague the advice is, at least what Rudius has experienced, you can assume that it's more of an idea of telling Darius to do this, telling Luke to do this, and then coming to find out that because he told Darius to make sure to stop Ariel, he got with Paimon to use his forces against him, which is against what he told Luke. He may have told Luke, yeah, Paimon's still working for him, but then Darius does this, and it goes against Luke. Not that the man god cares. The man god's prophecies were accurate, but he'd probably lied to Luke about something. That tended to be his style. He'd tell you anything if it meant that you could do what he wanted. It did occur to me that the man god might have abandoned Luke at this point. Also,
that's entirely possible. Luke's destiny is weak, so I doubt the man god had ever viewed him as a particularly valuable pawn. His main role was likely just to keep an eye on your movements. He's no longer even capable of that.
But the man god only has 3 pawns to play with, right? Would he really choose someone just for that purpose?
The man god can see everything, and any exceptions to that rule are terrifying to him. He had every motive to keep watch over you.
Okay, I think I get it. Yeah, you're an anomaly. It's kind of like that reverse thing that Orsted had at some point. Like, you are not supposed to be here. This is not right. The man god's vision was the ability he relied on most heavily, and they prevented him from using that against Rudius. Without Luke to monitor him directly, he wouldn't be able to anticipate any changes to the future. He'd have to fight them blind, guessing their next move without a single hint. And he was terrible at predicting things. So that technically does lead to the idea, this right here technically does lead to the idea of trying to throw as many powerful things as possible at Rudius. It kind of goes back to previous fights that Orsted has had, and even with like Laplace and stuff, that idea of like these big epic battles where they're sending like these very powerful people at each other. And yes, man god's involvement in those. Just throw the heaviest things. Like even Orsted at some point said that, yes, he's only sent 3 at me at once. 3 powerful people at me at once. That made Rudius think that he might not let Luke go completely. If nothing else, his presence would limit their options going forward. You think it's alright for me to leave Luke be for the time being then?
Yes, but be on your guard. When the man god sees no further use of his disciple, he'll often spur them to act in reckless, absurd ways.
Yeah, I guess so. He did once throw Rudius, a whimpering, sad sack, up against the dragon god himself.
If he takes any dramatic action, kill him.
I like to try to reach out to him, at least once.
What do you suggest discussing with him?
I want to ask him if the man god speaking to him, and find out what the advice was that he was given. If possible, I'd like to try to convince him not to trust the man god. Maybe even get him to act as a double agent for us. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Orsted has already suggested this idea of, like, this kind of manipulation the man god does. I don't know if he could convince him to otherwise. But who knows? Again, that's just speculation. Rudius wasn't too optimistic about his chances. Luke was clearly suspicious of him. The man god had probably told him Rudius' intentions. At the same time, he hadn't built up any trust with Luke to convince him to take his word. They weren't exactly friends. Yeah, but you're not like... it's like one of those things of like, you're not friends, but you're not like strangers. And again, you have access to somebody that can convince him. This kind of goes in that whole realm of like that difficulty that Rudius is having in taking everything upon himself. And rightfully so. Again, we're hitting so heavily on how Orsted's curse affects people and how he can't seem to get people's trust sometimes. Again, that's something that he's dealing with a lot with Sylvie. To the point there, Sylvie is your best tool. Use Sylvie. Yeah, it's harder to talk to Ariel. Well, he does eventually. We're going to get to this right here. But like right here, Sylvie is your best option because she kind of knows what you're going through, and she could be the most receptive of this. Keeping Orsted out of the picture with the conversation, but at least going to Sylvie directly and saying, you know, I need you to talk Luke into this. And I think for sure, I mean, I don't know everybody around Luke, but I would assume in the trust meter, Ariel, Sylvie, probably the 2 attendants, everybody else. That's your go-to. Make Sylvie convince him.
I don't think it'll accomplish anything, but feel free to try.
With Orsa's permission, he'd have to pick the right moment, and hopefully it wouldn't backfire.
For the moment, things are going smoothly enough. The man god hasn't been able to disrupt our plans efficiently. Keep it up, Rudius.
Yes, sir.
You're doing a good job. Keep up this and you'll get a pay raise. I might promote you. I have my eyes on another person to employ, and I need you to train them. On-the-site training.
Anyways, the amount of stupid workplace jokes later on is crazy. With their second meeting over, Rudius bowed and hurried back into the woods. Things were going smoothly enough. They already planned to fight Auber and join up with Triss. There was some unexpected details and minor complications, but nothing severe enough to get off track. Rudius could feel confident. Still, he wasn't. Things were going so well that he was getting anxious. He could sense some kind of danger, but it felt like it was hiding just outside of view. The whole thing with Luke was probably part of it. I hate that sense of like things are going so well and you're like, something bad's gonna happen. I do 100% have that mindset. Things are going too smooth. Now, I've had a lot of times where things are going so smooth that I get so comfortable with it that at some point I just forget that things can go wrong. But more often than anything, I'm constantly thinking, okay, things are going so well, something's going to break. And I don't think of that in the way of what Reese does. Reese here is thinking it with anxiety, obviously, because their lives are at stake. My life is not at stake most of the time when I'm thinking about things like going well. But my perspective, in a sense of not fearing death and that something lethal is going to happen, my mindset more goes in the idea that whenever I feel that, I kind of just get this sense of expecting it so it doesn't hurt. Always expect something will break when things are going well, so it doesn't hurt. Seen that coming. Here goes. It doesn't make it not hurt when things break, though. Orsa didn't seem concerned at all. Maybe that was because he hadn't seen everything today. Or maybe Rudius was overthinking things. It made him wonder what was going on in Orsa's head. There weren't any major problems, so there wasn't any need to blindly thrash around. Back in his old world, people used to say, it's better to try and fail than to fail because you didn't try. But that only applies when doing nothing guarantees failure. Sometimes maintaining the status quo was the best possible choice. Yeah, it's kind of a phrase that doesn't technically apply to everything. It's a phrase that applies to the idea of succeeding in order to gain something. It's not the idea of staying put and doing the status quo. If you are on the right track already, yes, you most of the time, in a lot of cases, you're not wanting to try something else. This is a concept of basically taking a leap of faith and doing something new. So it doesn't really apply the same there, Rudius, at least in my opinion. Bad analogy there. Or it could be a bad translation. Or it could be a bad translation. It's always the possibility. There is what's the possibility of bad quotes? I wonder what. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'm not being that mean to 7th season right now. Reese didn't want to fail, though. He didn't want to regret his choices. And with that goal in mind, there were a few things that he wanted to try. It felt worth risking a more proactive, open approach with Ariel and Luke. In particular, he wanted to approach Luke when the moment was right. He hadn't decided what to say, and it might make things worse. But he still needed to tell him exactly how dangerous the man god was. While maybe not the right call, he wanted to do it anyways. Returned to the camp, he was immediately greeted by Ariel. It's a lovely night, don't you agree, Rudius? Facing Rudius, the fire behind her casted her shapely features in shadow. Sylphie and Cleone looked on, their expressions troubled. Would you care to join me for a walk? As she spoke, Rudius could just make out a bold smile on her face. Here it is. Here it is. I like that. He's like heading back to the camp. He's like, I really badly want to talk to them too. Especially Luke. I want to tell Luke, dude, I've been through what you're going through, and I have a little bit of advice of you. Get away from that dude. It's so nice that he is so badly wanting to help Luke. It's like that element of like, it went from initially going, yeah, that might make Sylphie a little bit upset. That might hurt Ariel. And now it's really kind of getting more into the realm of, I want to give this dude a shot. And it's not as if he's all up in his head about like, I feel bad for this dude. I feel so bad. But it is technically hitting on Rudius' experience with the man god and how he can manipulate people and acknowledging that Luke is a good person, but it's always kind of in the shape of for Ariel. Not for him, not for Sylphie. He has mentioned how Sylphie does see him as a friend, but it's always Ariel. But now it seems like he's really pushing the idea that I want to give this dude a shot. I want to give him that out. If I can. Chapter 4, Ariel's Choice. And Loss of Fluids. Rudius walked with Ariel in the moonlight alone. She was leading them with a torch in her hand. If she kept pressing on, they would end up in the spot where he spoke to Orsted. I've been meaning to have a private conversation with you ever since we set off on this journey, Rudius. Sylphie and Cleone wanted to come along, But Ariel stopped them, claiming they had important matters to discuss. While Rudius had no idea what it was about, they had walked for a good 5 minutes before she faced him. It seems you value your secrecy, so I decided to arrange things this way. Rudius didn't think it was time for dumb jokes. What did you want to discuss with me, Ariel? Smiling boldly, she took his chin to her fingers. Try to be patient. The night's still young. He thought about making a no-touching rule. It's so funny because like the earlier segments of this is like it almost feels like he's trying to push her away, like I don't want you. And then at some point it just becomes too much for him. Like she manages to sway him a little bit. I guess it might be, but I prefer to sleep for most of it. Oh, don't be such a stiff. I wanted this to be more casual conversation. Withdrawing her hand, Ariel sat on a nearby tree root. Rudius activated his Eye of Foresight as a precaution. He wasn't using it against her. He didn't want anything unexpected to happen to her. It's so funny because like, yeah, there was a side of me that when Rudius first arrived back at the camp, and she was staying there, like, waiting for him, there was a side of me that was almost wondering if it might have been, like, Elmoy, or, shoot, it would be kind of weird if it was Luke wearing a wig and disguising himself. Because, yeah, it kind of had, like, with Sylphie and Kone nearby, kind of looking a little serious. And I had almost a thought that they were, like, they came together to go, Rudius is hiding something, and I'm, like, maybe Luke was literally going, he's hiding something. I need to find out what he's hiding. And I think he might talk to Ariel. So I'm going to disguise myself as Ariel and really figure it out. And it could have also been a thing that if Luke thought that Rudius was legit trying to kill Ariel, he could disguise himself as Ariel, go out there with Rudius, and see if he'll try to attack him. And then he'll know for sure. Like, they'll find, if I don't come back with Rudius, you'll know that he's trying to kill Ariel because we'll be alone and he'll kill her. And then use that as a sign to get her out of here. But that could still be a case. Again, I haven't technically read past this chapter, so that could still be the case. What we find out, like, suddenly Rudius is like, you know, they're traveling again, and he's kind of throwing hints at Ariel, and Ariel's like, what are you doing? And he's like realizing, oh, she's acting different than the night before, because as they kind of, in this chapter, they were a lot more friendlier as they came back. But I don't know, I think Orsted would be able to see through it. Plus, Luke, I don't think would at all be able to stand up against Orsted's curse. They've only indicated that Ariel can. So I guess that the fact that Orsted does confront in this situation does technically get rid of that thought process. But that was my thought process coming into this chapter and the end of the last chapter. I'm like, what if it's not actually Ariel? I must say, Sylphie and Edis certainly get along nicely, don't they? He figures she was trying to break the ice. I suppose you're right. At first I was afraid they would fight more frequently, but they seem to genuinely like each other. Rudius half expected Edis' addition to the family to turn the house into a battleground, clashing with Roxy and Sylphie regularly. But she hadn't gotten into a single fight with any of the family members. You know, when he went off to patrol the area the other night, they were chatting with each other as he lay in bed. Oh yeah? What about? Edis was grumbling that everyone should stop arguing and do exactly as you say. Sylphie tried to convince her that even you make mistakes at times, and they need to be ready to step in and support you. It was nice to be trusted, but Rudius felt that Edis gave him a bit too much credit. Sylphie was always trying to help in subtle ways behind the scenes, which he appreciated. He had to assume that they both were uneasy about his decision to join Orsted, but so far, they were following his lead without a word of complaint. Is this another... It feels like this entire volume is inconsistencies. Like, it feels like every chapter is an inconsistency. I mean, Sylphie had lots of words complaints. We literally had this whole scene where he was literally having to convince Sylphie that this was good. Like, him working with Orsted was a good thing, and she did not want to believe him. And it went to that whole idea about him telling that Luke was working against them and whatever. She did not want to believe him because Orsted was involved. It was because the curse was causing her to not trust his words. It ultimately came to the point where she finally said, let's drop the subject, which I thought was great. You're not going to be able to convince me otherwise, so let's just drop the subject. And even Edis wanted to technically kill Orsted, so I'm not sure about that. But again, this is on the subject of them following Rudius' lead, following what he's doing without complaining. Edis isn't going to complain. She's used to this. She went this whole long trial with him, giving him essentially the go-ahead to lead them. She did not want to get in his way. And in a sense, she was so young and she was so scared that she really had no choice but to go with his lead. Please get me home kind of thing. Don't step out of line. Don't cause problems for Rudius. He's got it figured out. So yeah, again, another inconsistency there. Sylphie has had lots of complaints. And she's technically went against a lot of your suggestions. I mean, the whole teleportation thing was a big one. They're like polar opposites, aren't they? Edis throws herself in the front lines to fight your enemies, and Sylphie stays behind and supports you in other ways. I'm very lucky to have them around. They both complement some of my glaring weaknesses. His affection for them had developed out of gratitude. They had done so much for him, and he wouldn't forget it as long as he lived. The amusing part for me, at least, is how Sylphie treats Edis like a little sister. A little sister? A rather impulsive one, in need of scolding. Edis seems to accept that role herself. She tends to do what Sylphie tells her, although a bit begrudgingly. Yeah, again, this goes back to what Edis has decided. The moment that Edis had joined this family, she was doing it under the guise that I don't want to cause problems with Rudius. I will basically find my place to fit in here. And again, I think a lot of that is that what she experienced in that whole chapter where she was first trying to find a place to fit in. Like, I'm going to marry him too. I need to find a place to fit in here. What is everybody doing? What can I do equally? And in that chapter, she literally gets a sign that Roxy and Sylphie accept her into the family and see her as having this role. And that was enough for her. I'm going to fit in right here. They showed me where the spot is. Get in that spot. And again, going back to Saros's words and what she feels is necessity for her to do is make sure that Rudius looks good. So she's not gonna be pushing and shoving. And yes, it's technically going to see those that are in that position before her as technically having a lot of knowledge. It's funny, don't you think? Sylphie's the younger and smaller one, but somehow she's the big sister. You're very perceptive, Your Highness. Oh, I wouldn't say that. I just have fewer things to keep my eye on than you do, and fewer matters on my mind. She's totally driving it right into it. You could tell right here where she's heading with this. It's so great that you can actually see what her train of thought is and how she's trying to slowly open that door. Your mind is, you have so many, because this is Ariel. Ariel has 1,000 things that she's thinking about. Let's make no joke here. She is lying right here. She is lying through her smile right here. Ariel has a million things to think about. Who is behind me? Who is my subordinates? Who have I lost? What am I facing against? What am I going to do when I get there? Is Petagus going to help me? What is Petagus doing? What is Petagus's plan? What is Luke doing? What is Cleone and Elmoy thinking? What does Sylphie think about the situation? What are we going? Who are these bandits? How are they going to help us? What do I say when I get there? What do I say when I get to Asra? Who is going to be my allies when I get there? How am I going to lay them out? She has a million things in her mind. She has every single person that is backing her on her mind and what they're doing and what she's supposed to do for them. This is a joke. Ariel has millions of times more things to think about than Rudius. But, again, she's opening the door. She's creeping that door open to say, you're always thinking about things, aren't you? What are you always thinking about, Rudius? Who's on your mind right now? Who's backing you? Where's he at? Where's Orsted? It's literally where she's going with this, is that aspect of what Orsted's doing and what that is troubling Rudius about. Because they all see that Rudius, he kind of says it later, like the idea that he always has it on his face, what he's thinking and how it's affecting him. He has a bad poker face. So it's obvious to everybody that Rudius has a million things on his mind. That's what Sylphie and Edis and Roxy are constantly dealing with. He's hiding something, and we gotta support him because it shows on his face. Ariel chose this moment to shoot a look that can only be described as seductive. He could do without the flirting. Now then, I know you're an attentive man yourself, Rudius. Your gaze is constantly in motion, and your thoughts are sometimes occupied with things that can't be seen at all. Her tone turned theatrical. It seemed that they were coming to the real topic at hand. Nope, this is not the real topic. And so, there's something I'd like to ask you. What are your thoughts on Luke? So, it was about Luke, not Orsted? It is about Orsted. It is about Orsted, dude. Well, I'm not sure what to say exactly. This is a bad habit of yours, Rudius. What? You're trying to figure out what I want to hear, aren't you? Granted, that's a reasonable approach under certain circumstances, but you don't need to take that with me. Not here, not now. Rudius thought, that's a bad habit of mine? I didn't really feel like it was. However, now that he thought about it, it was something that he'd been doing a lot lately. At least when he spoke to Orsted or the Man God. No, it was much worse than that. He was doing it with his own family members too. It's a habit he's had for a long time. This is literally the Rudius that falls in line. This is the old Rudius. Don't cause conflict. Don't stick your head out. Stay secluded. Don't walk out that gate. Stay hidden. And especially, even though he kind of came out of it for a while, especially when everything happened with him and Edis and he goes up to the north, don't step out of line. Don't get involved with people. And what comes from that is always say what the other person wants to hear. In all honesty, I think that Luke has betrayed us. That was unexpected. It must have been the argument at the campfire that did it. Although I haven't breathed a word of this to Sylphie or the others. I thought you trusted Luke a little more than that, Your Highness. Roos really thought that they wrapped things up nicely back there. Ariel reaffirming her faith in Luke. I do trust him. Luke has no reason to betray me, and he could have done so much at a much earlier stage. If he so desired, it would have been easy enough for him to kill me in my sleep, so why suspect him? Despite his loyalty, he could still be coerced into betraying me somehow. For example, Luke takes pride in his family and his history. Perhaps they took his loved ones hostage. That did not occur to Rudius before, but it explains his actions. Even if he wasn't being directly manipulated by the man god, maybe Darius kidnapped Luke's family, makes a deal before sending soldiers and breaking that deal. It would explain his shock. Yeah, that technically does make sense. I mean, if you pull the man god out of Luke's situation and apply it only to Darius, he tells Darius, you need Luke to help you out. So he's going to be your eyes. So kidnap his family, communicate to him what's going on, and tell him, I won't kill your family, I won't involve your family, but you need to do what I tell you to do. And Luke could have been doing that. And that would explain why he reacted the way he did the moment that he see that armor. No, he said that he wasn't going to get my family involved. He was supposed to not touch my family, and he did. But again, I don't think his ties to his family is as strong as it is to Ariel, so I don't think this is true. But it's a possibility. I don't know enough about Luke. They haven't been so clear about his entire mindset. Since that conversation, Luke had kept oddly quiet, maybe trying to decide whether to rejoin Ariel or continue following Darius' orders. That's probably how it looked to Ariel, at least. And so, I'm asking for your opinion. You agreed to join my cause quite recently, and rather suddenly. Perhaps you know certain things I don't. She seemed to have her doubts about Rudius as well. It was understandable, considering how Luke talked about him. Was it that she was suggesting that he played a role in manipulating Luke? I think that's a stretch. I have a question of my own, if you don't mind. Why are we talking about this out here, alone in the woods? I could assassinate you out here if I was really your enemy. Yes, I'm sure you could manage that easily enough, but if I mistrust you that completely, I've only myself to blame. She had some guts, clearly. Then again, it wasn't like there was any chance that he would actually betray her. She was probably just playing mind games with him. I don't believe Lucas betrayed you exactly. I think he's just being misled. By whom? This was a tricky question. Yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's leading you right into that path. Could he mention the man god? It would make things simpler, but wait. What if Ariel was his disciple? What if that was why she was having this conversation? Orsa didn't seem to think that was a possibility, but you never knew. He needed to calm down. What was the risk of telling the truth? Or the benefits? My apologies. I'm putting you in a difficult position. I'm sure you would have shared that information already if you had the liberty to do so. Yeah, I think there is a possibility that Ariel is a disciple. It would be very curious how the man god could manipulate her, even despite the fact that Orsted has sort of played out the idea that because, again, and kind of implied, because she's not affected by Orsted in that way, it seems to imply the man god as well. But the man god manipulated Rudius, and Rudius was not affected either. So it's not as if Ariel's completely out of the question. It's just unlikely as in accordance to Orsted. He has that sense. And again, Orsted's sense of that, my assumption when Orsted said that he has this feeling, like he just knows, my assumption was that it was due to the fact that she's not affected by his curse and thus wouldn't be affected by the man gods. But it doesn't mean that that's what he's implying. He could know something else. It could be just based on her actions, how she presents herself. Definitely can't be the man god's disciple. Rudius blinked in surprise. And so, I'd like to ask you to introduce me. It was hard to see in the darkness, but she had a smile that looked warm and genuine. I want to see the man who controls you from the shadows. That is to say, the dragon god Orsted. Huh? She knew. She knew the dude'd been there the whole time. Well, granted, earlier in the last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, it implied that he was gone for like 30 minutes. Like, yes, it technically would take a while for him to kind of scout the whole area, but being away for 30 minutes, I think she's getting a hint. He was shocked. No idea what to make of this. Why did she bring up Orsted? They were talking about Luke. How did you know? It was obvious from the moment that he had you lead us to the library labyrinth. The timing of it was simply too convenient. At the moment, my main concern is determining which side Orsted is on. Was she talking about the conflict between her and Grabble? Or was she talking about Orsted's loyalty in general? It was getting hard to decipher all these vague hints and insinuations. Princess Ariel was usually pretty clear and to the point. What are you planning to do when you determine that? If he's on the right side, I plan to welcome his support, no matter how horrifying he might be. I'm prepared to tolerate him. That's easier said than done, you know. I'm royalty, a princess. We know how to maintain our composure around those that we fear or loathe. It shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, and it's so funny because they kind of fake out too. Rudius felt like Orsted's curse was more powerful than she thought. Okay, what if he's on the wrong side? Then I'll pull him to the other. She said that confidently. He's somewhere close by and present, isn't he? Or perhaps you've been communicating him by a messenger. It was a tough call. He wasn't sure that he could make this call on his own. Ariel seemed to think that she could endure his curse, but he knew how potent it was. Anyone instantly classified him as an enemy. And if she's affected by this, she might make Rudius an enemy too. If he refused her, it would basically be announcing they had something to hide. It was all more complicated than it needed to be, as they had no intentions of interfering with her plans. The man god wanted her to fail, and their goal was to stop him. Yeah, it's like, I don't know what to do with this. This could really screw things up. And again, that's something that's been on his mind for a while now. Yeah, it would make things so much easier if she just talked to Orsted directly. But what if it actually affects her? Then everything falls apart. Everything we're building up falls apart.
There's no need to overthink this, Rudius.
Rudius was startled to find Orsted behind him. Finally, they meet.
If Ariel Alamoy Asura wishes to speak to me, I would not refuse her.
His sharp, intense gaze was focused on Ariel's face. She reacted as if hit by a jolt of electricity, eyes wide and legs trembling violently. And also, a small puddle began to form at her feet. Oh my gosh. This scene. This scene. There was sheer terror on her face. It was an expression of someone trapped in a living nightmare. This didn't look good. Riz figured he'd be a traitor now. However, in the next moment, a look of ecstasy spread across Ariel's face. Oh my gosh. Oh, Ariel. Girl built different. Girl built different. Ariel built different. The birth of the Pith Princess. She was pretty clearly feeling pleasure now. Interesting. Huh. Guess this might actually work after all. I really I really don't know what to say about this whole segment. This is one of those things where I guess back there when she first said that she's seen Orsted, she was talking about how, like, yeah, I think if I met him face to face, I would probably, just completely lose it all. And she's like, but that's good because it kind of feels nice to do that in front of somebody. Ariel kinky as hell. Ariel is kinky as hell. I mean, we've established that, especially like with that first introduction of her. Like, she's just constantly thinking about what she wants to do to the maids and stuff. Ariel's kinky as hell. And yes, the joke aside, like, yes, the whole like golden shower thing that she wanted to do in front of Orsted and how that would be so great. There was still like a sense there that she did have a fear of him, but there was still a question mark of, okay, maybe it's just an aspect of her. He's just a mean looking dude. He looks mean. He's always got that mean look. He's very intense looking. And it's so funny because like nothing in my mind was at all expecting that it was going to turn into a thing of it seems to indicate that she had some kinky thoughts here. Like the moment he walked up, she literally had an orgasm. like literally his presence just made her lose it all, and she liked it. Now, granted, it's more of an aspect of, yes, the whole losing it, relieving herself. there's a thought of God, my mind is going in some bad places. My mind is going in some bad places. I will only describe one of the ways is the ways is. I could totally see this, like, Rudius goes off to scout, and Ariel's like, I know he's going to think, he's got to be going to see this Orsted guy. He's going to see the Dragon God. I think I want to meet this Dragon God guy so bad. God, I need to drink some water. Sylphie, bring me some water. I need a lot of water. Like, the side of me that thinks that she legit wanted to do this so bad. And I never really thought about it, but yeah, I could totally see this, like, man, I wonder if Ariel is actually I wonder if she finds Orsted attractive. Like, she finds this the kinky thing. Like, man, I kind of like this dude. He's kind of scary and I like it. Like, he kind of fits this weird fetish that she has. Like, this somebody that's extremely powerful and so dominating, and I just want to lose it in front of him. And so it's like, yeah, I can kind of see, like, Ariel going, if I want to beat these people, I'll use them. And so it's like, I half expected somewhere in here that Ariel tries to flirt with Orsted, like, tries to get him hitched to her. Like, literally, like, are we looking at an Ariel X Orsted thing here? I don't think Orsted gives a flying crap about Ariel or even ever getting with her, but I could totally see Ariel like, I need to get this guy whipped. I need to get him under my control. I will marry this guy if it means I will have his power. It's just, my mind went in a million directions. And again, girl built different. Princess Ariel built different. She's special. Girl special. Ah, goodness. Anyways, where the hell was I at in here? Okay, after a while, Ariel regained her composure and appeared totally unruffled, as if nothing ever happened. She's like, okay, moving on. I just wanted to get that out of my system. I feel better now. And I guess it goes to that whole idea of, like, royalty. Like, this stuff like this doesn't really make them feel ashamed. Like, they're used to being undressed and dressed and people seeing, like, their darkest dirtiness. So they don't care. Like, Ariel has a bodyguard at her side no matter what she's doing. And, yeah, she did a lot of freaky things. I don't think she's fazed by a bunch of people seeing her do that. That's like when Rudius walked into the room and she was changing. She's like, I don't care. Luke's right over there. People look at me all the time. Rudius had washed her dirty pants and underwear with his water magic, then dried them with his original spell, Steam Dry, which worked almost instantaneously. It wasn't good for all fabrics, so Aisha had angrily forbid him from using it at home. Don't do that. It messes up the fabrics. I'll handle it. No, I think that's more of an idea of, like, Aisha doesn't want to get replaced by your magic, dude. Well, no, it's also probably because he's very informed about fabrics and stuff like that, taking care of them. While he had lived for many years at this point, he'd never expected he'd seen the day that he'd be washing the underwear of a princess. In this world, the expensive stuff seemed mostly made out of silk. Ariel during this time was wrapped up in Rudius' robes. It was a good thing they were nice and long. Ariel, now in clean clothes, seemed to have forgotten all about the incident. Rudius was now back in his robes that were once wrapped around a half-naked princess. It smelled kind of nice. Whoops, it wasn't time to get all excited. He hadn't had much fun for the last few days, so his horny meter was going full. Orsted was waiting nearby with an awkward expression. Now that the princess was ready, she turned to face him once again. I do apologize for that unfortunate display, Lord Orsted.
It's all right.
Ariel looked kind of pale, but there was no terror in her eyes now. Please, you don't have to glower at me like that.
This is how my face always looks, I'm afraid.
He's like, that's just my face.
You look so mad. That's my face.
Why does he always look so mad?
That's my face. That's how I was born.
Ah, I see. So this is another effect of your curse, then?
Correct.
Rudius wondered why Orsted showed up in the first place, but the boss could make his own decisions. At this point, he would keep his mouth shut and see how things played out. I see. I've met a number of you blessed children and their cursed counterparts, but I can tell your affliction is far more powerful than most.
Indeed. But it seems that you know some way to resist its influence.
I'm a member of the Osram royal family. We're taught how to suppress our more negative emotions.
That doesn't mean you trust me either. Not in any real sense.
True enough. But that's exactly why I wanted to speak to you like this. Interesting. I guess the reason why I'm more conflicted here is because Orsted doesn't say anything to refute it. It's implying that Ariel is affected by his curse, but because she is an Austrian royal family member, she was taught how to suppress those negative emotions. Like, they're raised to know that bad things are going to happen, that you're going to expect this, that you need to, and if there's pressure on you, how to deal with it. That makes sense, but they've always implied this idea that the curse itself physically affects you. You're not going to fight it. I think if somebody like Rajerd barely ever showed emotions. He showed anger. He showed wrath. He showed for a brief moment sorrow, or tears of joy rather, but he was locked in place. So yeah, I guess there is a sense here, because even with that whole situation with Orsted attacking Rudius, Rajerd fought it. He was able to go against Orsted. If it was a case the curse itself was absolute, Rajerd would not be able to turn and face Orsted. But yet he did. And many others have faced Orsted in the past. So I guess there is a sense here that, yeah, this can be suppressed. You can overcome it in some way. It's not absolute, I think is the best way to describe it, which is very curious. It's simply implying the idea that she is, in fact, being affected, but she just knows how to overcome it. And I think there's a lot of this that has to do with her determination for what she's going for and what she has to lose if she doesn't succeed, which again is to let down those that have fallen before her, that is driving her to put aside that stuff and fight it in order to gain Orsted's help. It seemed that they were sizing each other up, but Rudy still felt it important to listen to everything they were saying. Even if the pleasant smell from his robes was distracting. He's like, yeah, what are they talking about? I'll get straight to the point. Why are you assisting me, Lord Orsted?
Because my sworn enemy is pulling Darius' strings.
Do you mean my brother, Prince Grabble?
No.
Who is it then?
An evil one who styles himself as a god of men. His name is Man-God.
Orsted actually went right into it. How much was he planning on telling her? Rhea still felt that there was a chance that she might turn against them at some point. The Man-God? Isn't that one of the creator gods from ancient myth?
I can't say that he's one and the same, but he has taken that name, at least.
You're telling me that a god has given Darius his support? But why?
He wishes to see you murdered and Grabble take the throne.
Ariel seemed nonplussed, turned to Rudius slowly, and studied him in silence. I see. It's certainly a bizarre story, but Rudius' face seemed to suggest that you're not lying. I have to wonder why this god would support my brother, however. Is Grabble simply more deserving of the throne?
No. The Man-God's motivations are purely selfish.
Could you elaborate, perhaps? Orsted glanced to Rudius, frowned uncertainly for a moment, before turning back to Ariel. This is so telling. There's like two sides of that. Rudius obviously goes down this path, which is like, crap, I'm telling him things that... I have to tell her things that I haven't even told him. So he's like, should I? But there is a side of me that sort of wonders, I didn't want Rudius to know this. That's just like a random thought I had, but I wonder if this is getting into, because I kind of suggested that before. But I was kind of more going a different route. Rudius was always wondering, like, man, Orsted never tells me everything. I wish he would tell me more of that later stuff. But he's like, I don't care really because it's past my life. But there was like a sense of like, why won't he tell me? And I think at the time I was kind of going down the joke and plausible route. And the idea that, yes, it's more of an aspect of him going, you don't need to know this. So I'm not going to waste my time explaining it to you. I'm not going to tell you something 100 years down the road when you're not going to be involved with it. Just focus on this. This is what we're working on right now. This is important to you. But yeah, there is a chance that a lot of this information Orsted didn't want Rudius to know. And again, part of that could be because there's a chance that Rudius at some point could technically be manipulated by the Man-God, or Rudius could divulge that information to somebody that could divulge it to somebody that is a disciple of the Man-God. But overall, it's like, there is a side that you wonder if he just doesn't want Rudius to know this, and now he's like, crap, all right, I'll tell her. Sorry, Rudius. I know I was keeping this from you.
Roughly 100 years from now, the kingdom of Asura will face an existential threat.
Ariel blinked in surprise.
In that moment of crisis, the kingdom's response will depend on whether you or Grabble seize the throne.
Rudius was upset a little bit that Orsted never told him that yet. She's getting more information than I got.
Should Grabble triumph, Asura will answer that threat with military force. If you triumph, they will respond with magic.
Surely neither of us will be alive in 100 years from now.
Your policies as sovereign will guide the kingdom down different paths. Grabble will focus on enlarging the military, and you will strengthen its magical forces instead. If Asura relies on its armies, it will fall. But if it turns to its mages, the kingdom will endure. The Man-God wishes Asura to be destroyed.
Can of worms. Like the can of worms has been opened. Yeah, that's interesting. Because again, this has been something that has been a question mark for Rudius for a long time. Why Ariel? And this makes perfect sense because I think that was technically something brought up in the opening chapters of Ariel. What did Derek say, or what did he think? He was thinking about how the northern regions, they're studying magic and they're getting proficient in magic. Down the south, they're building up, and we're sitting here comfy. And eventually, they're going to come and destroy us. And so it makes sense that now that Ariel has gone to the north, she has met a lot of people up there. She is really, really close with a lot of the magic nations. Now that she goes back, she will bring them in. She will bolster. I mean, there's already a presence of the magic nation or the guild in there, but she can bolster that up. Whereas again, Gravel's going to focus on just making a massive military army that is apparently going to fail at whatever is going to come to it. He's literally saying there's a threat that Asura will face in 100 years from now, and 2 routes will happen. Military force meeting it, or magical forces meeting it. And the magical forces will beat it. So it implies this, and it's kind of an interesting thing I got to note, because we've always spent so much time emphasizing how more powerful swordsmanship is, and how it can literally cut down a mage in like a blink of an eye. Sort of like down, like Rudius facing Edis. Down. Like he had no chance. This is also kind of implying this idea that a magical force is going to become stronger. And that could just be it from a range. And it could be that the threat itself is more easily dealt with magic. Something that's going to be attacking it will be better met with magical attacks. Who knows? Maybe something airborne. Maybe something airborne. That's an interesting thought. Or she could be lying to her, telling her convenient story in order to get her on his side. That didn't seem like a great idea. Not with Bruce's face around to give it away. Why would the man god want to see Asura fall to ruin?
Because it will produce an individual who plays a key role in his defeat.
Interesting. He wants to prevent this person's birth?
Precisely.
Ariel brought her hand to her chin, trying to make sense of it all. After a moment, she shot an uncertain look to Rudius. He thought, stop looking at me. I'm not a lie detector, woman. He tried to put on his best poker face. Maybe it would help. That's interesting, though. He wants Asura to fall because a certain person will be birthed there. And that person will play a role in defeating the man god. It doesn't have to be one of Rudius' descendants. Now, it could be that Rudius birthed a child, and that child will meet somebody in Asura, and they will get together and birth another child. But it could also just be somebody that is going to be from Asura that will give them something they need or assist them in some way for their battle. Maybe a blacksmith that produces weapons they need. What if it's a mage that will produce magical implements they need in order to get there? There's a million opportunities here, but the key thing here is that Asura needs to remain because that key person needs to be alive soon. And yeah, it kind of goes to that whole credit of how this all plays out and how absolutely fascinating it is that it's a ripple effect. It's the butterfly effect. And the idea that it all starts from Ariel ascending the throne. If she doesn't ascend the throne, Gravel does. He bolsters the military, and the military will not be able to face a foe. So it's simple for the man god. Oh, well, if Gravel's there, that works out much more better in my favor. They'll fall. Okay, get rid of Ariel. That's simple. Get rid of this. Nobody's going to miss her. Nobody even notice it. But if I get rid of her, that'll all happen. But this does technically play out to finally explain why the man god would care about Asura. Because like, for the longest time, I was kind of thinking, I always kind of had the theory that there's a possibility the man god doesn't even care about Asura. It's just Orsted and Rudius think it's important. Now we're finally finding out that, yeah, it is important. This is actually important to the man god. There's a person that will be born there that he doesn't want around. And this is cool. This is cool. I love this stuff. I love when this stuff just pops in my head. And there's a chance that Rudius will bring it up later on. This goes that whole destiny fate thing. That at some point, this person that will assist or be a key role in the defeat of the man god will be born Asura. And the question mark is, well, why doesn't he figure out a way of getting that person killed when they're born or as they're being, as the woman was pregnant? Now, he did say that their destiny is weak when the person's pregnant, but that was in an appliance to Roxy, or the person that has the fate. The person that is pregnant. Not necessarily the child itself. But there's like a question mark here that, yes, if he waits until that child is born, their destiny will be too strong. It could be too strong that he can't affect them. So how do you get around that? Prevent it from ever being born. Prevent that pregnancy from ever happening. Prevent that mother from ever existing. Get rid of the entire kingdom. That's the best way to avoid that destiny and that fate. It's super cool. Well, in all honesty, I'm a bit perplexed at the moment. This isn't remotely what I expected to hear, and I can't quite decide if I should believe you.
You don't have to trust me. I'll tell you what you want to know, regardless.
What are you referring to? Ariel looks somewhat surprised.
Luke Notice Grey Rat has not betrayed you. He's simply being manipulated by the man god.
He's just throwing it all out there. Or it's just like, she's good. We'll tell her everything. Ariel's smile disappeared. It was her default expression this entire conversation. But now it had vanished. Rhys had also suggested that might be the case. But if I may ask, how exactly is he being manipulated?
The man god is leading him down the wrong path, promising him all the while that is for your benefit.
Luke is wiser than he might appear. I'm not sure that he'd be so easily deceived.
Even clever men are prone to trust those who tell them what they want to hear.
It felt like Orsted usually told Rudius things that he didn't want to hear. But he trusted him. Maybe that rule wasn't universal. Yeah, like, there's like a comfort in honesty, and I think that's something that he learned really quickly with Orsted. But yeah, it's kind of not going to apply in all cases. This is all rather difficult to believe. Do you really find this credible as well, Rudius? She seemed to turn to Rudius to be a lie detector again. He had to admit, this was a smart strategy. If Orsted really was making up a bunch of nonsense, he'd have to improvise something that sounded consistent. Any slip-ups would give it all away. Thankfully, he had a good response. The man god manipulated me for many years. He would appear in my dreams and give me suggestions about what to do next. I gained all sorts of things from following his advice, but it was all just a part of his game. He was always planning to betray me in the end. He fooled me into trusting him, and he turned against me. In the end, he even forced me to fight Orsted. Not once, but twice. I think he's doing something very similar to Luke right now. The words came out of Rudius' mouth easier than expected. He even managed to keep his tone neutral. Ariel heard him out, expressionless, then turned to Orsted. She opened her mouth to speak, shook her head, and paused. For a moment, she stayed silent, lost in thought. In other words, Luke isn't working for Darius after all?
Correct. He serves the interest of your enemy, but he does so unknowingly. I would imagine that he remains loyal to you.
I think that's all she needed to hear. They took a long detour, but ultimately, this seemed to be what Ariel cared about the most. That mattered more to her than the truth of Orsted's story. It's quite a relief to hear that. Yeah, that is very interesting, the idea that, like, Orsted's laying out some crazy stuff, like some, what's going on, like Asra 100 years from now, a massive threat that's coming to it, mages, military, Grabble, me, man god, deception. Is Luke working against me? That's what she cares about. That's personal. This is politics. This is the future. This is a later thing. This is, yes, technically her livelihood because she's going to die if she doesn't make it. She could die in this whole thing. But this is what's important to her. This is what's probably tearing at her heart right now. Is this man that I've trusted this whole time, is he betraying me? I need to know that. Okay, how does this fit into the picture? Okay, gotcha.
You believe the things I've told you then?
Under ordinary circumstances, your story would have sounded ridiculous. However, it does seem consistent with my own observations. It explains why Rudius was glancing in Luke's direction so frequently. To be frank, your timing was suspiciously perfect, but I've decided to accept the risk of trusting you. She bold. Ariel bold. The Golden Princess is bold. She looked to Rudius when she said those last words. Maybe she had chosen to trust him, if not Orsted. It was flattering, but it was also concerning him a little bit. Yeah, it's like that aspect of like she's talking to Orsted, and then she's like, here's Orsted, here's Rudius. But I've decided to accept that risk of trusting you. Interesting. Tell me, does the man god have anyone else under his control?
He likely is using Darius as well.
That does seem like a logical choice. Is there anyone else?
The odds are that his third disciple is either the North Emperor Auber or the water god Retta, but it's hard to say for certain.
Are there only 3 of these disciples then?
Correct. No more at any given time.
I see. So you and Rudius are here to fight those 3 disciples and interfere with the man god's plans. Is that correct?
It is. You're quick-witted, I must say.
Thank you. I do consider myself relatively clever. There was a hint of real pride in Ariel's voice, but she hadn't cracked a smile. Yeah, that's like one of those men, like this dude in front of me is literally known as the Dragon God Orsted. And he's like, you're clever. It's like the whole thing with him talking about the armor, and he's like, man, I bet Zenoba and Cliff would be thrilled to hear that he likes their armor. If it weren't for the curse. There was a hint of real pride in Ariel's voice, but she hadn't cracked a smile. It felt like her face was stuck on a blank expression. Now then, Lord Orsted, I have a proposal.
Oh?
Since it seems like we share the same objective, I'd like you to consider me your subordinate. If you give me orders, I'll follow them. That is a desperate princess. I wouldn't say desperate, but yeah, she is in a bad spot. That is I guess that's more a better way of putting this. This is a princess that's willing to give everything, as it kind of alludes to here in a minute, sell her soul to get that position. And again, this all goes to what she has basically snowballed into. I have lost all these people. They have given their hopes in me. They have given their lives that I would succeed. I need to succeed at this, even if it means I sell myself to anybody for that power. She will, as a princess of the Asura Kingdom, the Kingdom of Asura, which is literally like the pinnacle. Like this place has been around even through the war itself. This is a massive kingdom. This is a powerful kingdom. Yes, getting lazy, and we've talked about that before, but this is a massive kingdom. To rule this kingdom is a big, big deal. The princess of that kingdom is saying, I will be your subordinate. That's crazy.
I doubt your companions would accept that.
I see no need to tell them. They can't accuse me of selling my soul to the devil if they don't know that it ever happened. Rhys thought, was he hurt by being called a devil? I'm willing to use any means at my disposal to ensure our victory. I want as many powerful allies as I can find.
You're not concerned I might betray you in the end?
I'm not foolish enough to throw away any opportunities to avoid all risk. It sounded impressive enough, but Rhys got a sense that Ariel thought that she was swearing allegiance to some evil demon king. He felt the same way when he kneeled before Orsted. It turned out the Dragon God Corporation was a legitimate business with excellent benefits and reasonable deadlines. The CEO did look like an evil bastard, but treated his employees pretty well. I'm never going to get over how Rudy just turns this entire thing into a corporation. Now there's a new employee. One last thing, Lord Orsted. For the time being, I'd like you to place the problem of Luke in my hands.
Why?
Rhys can focus his entire attention on the battle against the man god's disciples, while I devote my attention to handling Luke and the Asura nobility. Dividing our responsibilities should allow us to use our time more efficiently.
Very well. I'll let you deal with Luke for now. Win him over if possible, and kill him if it isn't.
So be it. Thank you, Lord Orsted. Like, she agrees that so quickly, and I guess that's a confidence probably in her. I could probably save this guy. Ariel kneed before her new superior, and he responded with a simple nod, face stern as ever.
She's like, whatever.
Rhys couldn't remember the last time he felt this baffled. Maybe perplexed? No, he thought befuddled would be the word. All of a sudden, Ariel swore allegiance to Orsted. From now on, they'd be sharing plans and working towards the same goal. The Princess of Asura was now Rhys' co-worker. This honestly simplifies so much stuff. It simplifies so much stuff. It kind of makes me wonder if going forward, Ariel is going to be very, very quick to look to Rudius. And I think that will cause suspicion. So I'm kind of thinking that she's going to not make it look so obvious. She's going to be working with them and seeking Rhys' advice on situations because he has more of an insight into this whole situation. But because she didn't ask a lot of questions that she could have asked right here. Now, it could turn this whole thing where later on we find out, oh yeah, we met up again and Orsted informed her on this or whatever. But I think she's going to be looking to Rudius more now and trusting him more. And I'm curious if that's going to raise up massive flags going forward. I kind of think he needs to, but I kind of wonder if he is going to. Rudius kind of needs to talk to Sylphie now. I think Sylphie at least needs to know. But again, it might be a bad idea because it'll cause too much question marks. The second princess of Asura was now Rhys' co-worker. I hope you'll be keeping this a secret from Sylphie and the others, Rudius. Well, there you go, right there. Of course. I have to ask, though, are you sure about all this? Yes, I feel profoundly relieved, to be honest. And I'm not just talking about my condition. And I'm not just talking about the condition of my bladder. I feel... like I released so much stuff from my like the weight has been lifted off of me. I have shut up, Andrew. The energized expression on her face confirmed her statement. And I guess that technically makes sense. Again, a lot of this has to do with Luke. And it was so much to do with, I think, the reason why she kind of cornered Rudius, or at least brought Rudius into the whole situation and brought him off to the side, is because he obviously knew something. I am so conflicted with Luke right now, and you obviously know something, and you see a bigger picture, obviously. So let's get this out of the way. And yeah, I can see a lot of that anxiety falling off her because she's been thinking probably about that a lot. I suppose you and I are truly allies now, Rudius. At long last. I suppose we are. That is true. Technically, like all the way back here, technically when he first came to the academy, she was recruiting him, and he was always avoiding her. And at some point, Sylphie was talking about him, and she was leaving it to Sylphie. And then, yes, eventually when they actually, did the deed and everything, brought him in, then he's like, yeah, I'll marry her. Even then, she could not control his power. She said that she was told, and she believed it, this whole story about that power is not, you cannot control that power. You cannot seize that power. It is too much for you. It will destroy you. She could not control Rudius. She never tried to. Finally, after all that time, after that long span of time, literally since, I guess, Volume 8, finally, she feels like an ally of Rudius now. Pretty cool. Rudius was uneasy about the details of this agreement, but Orsted made the call, and he had to respect that. There's just one thing, Your Highness. Yes? What is it? I think I should make this clear in advance. Luke's your responsibility now, but if I think he's actively trying to harm Sylphie or Edis, I'll step in and take him out. You won't respect Orsted's decision then? The entire reason I'm working with Orsted is to protect my family. Rudius thought it felt best to get this out in the open as a precaution. That said, Ariel seemed confident that she could handle the situation with Luke, so he was willing to leave it in her hands for now. She certainly had a better chance of talking some sense into him. I understand completely, Rudius. And incidentally, I'm looking forward to working with you. Glad to have you on our side. Just like that, Orsted Incorporated secured its second employee. It goes without saying, but Sylphie was none the pleased when the two of them strolled back to the camp, friendlier than before. Jealous Sylphie going at it again. The jealous Sylphie going at it again. Crazy. That's chapter 4. Crazy chapter. Like I've said before, this is technically something that I was kind of predicting a while back. Like I just think at some point Orsh is going to walk out there and say, let's just get this done. Let's just meet. But we need to get this out of the way. And I think it was all kind of technically set up the moment they implied that Ariel could possibly resist his curse. Like there was something about her that she possibly could resist his curse. And even though Rudius had that still in his head that, no, what if it's just because of range? What if he does get close and she just loses it? Which she's not wrong. But what if she loses it in the idea of no longer trusting them? That would be extremely bad. So there was the risk there. It's just Orsted finally decided, let's just do it. It seems like this isn't work. It seems like this is going to work out. Let's just do it. So a bold move by Orsted, but again, that's based on his own beliefs. Like he has been living for a long time, and he has experienced a lot of people that deal with his curse differently. And he probably, based on that experience, he knew exactly how she was probably going to react. It's just surprising that it took so long for her to do it. And I think it's mainly because she was finally on her own. Like it's most likely that if he ever confronted her any other time, somebody else would be there and they would freak out. It would cause a problem. Luke would be there. He would attack Orsted or run away or grab Ariel and run. Probably grab Ariel and just run. But they would react in a way that would be so chaotic that it would never work out. So now that she's out there on her own with Rudius, okay, now I can confront her and there won't be a problem. But yes, Ariel, the Golden Princess, has joined Orsted Incorporate, apparently. Rudius, goofy little name there. Super cool stuff. I'm glad to finally have at least somebody on Rudius' side. It's kind of nice to kind of point out that Ariel seems relieved. Like again, the jokes aside, that now she's got that cloud is gone. And again, a lot of that has to do with Luke, but that cloud is now gone. She now knows what Rudius is doing. She now has possibly she now knows that a very powerful person is backing her, so to speak. Not that she fully believes it or trusts it, but she at least sees that there's an opportunity there. I can use him. It seems like he's working for me. This seems like a positive. Let's see how it works out. Let me work with you. I'll let you decide what I do as long as you'll help me. I can see that being something that will be extremely relieving to a person to get that out of there. And yeah, it kind of makes me believe that with Rudius, I hate that stupid joke now. I keep thinking about that stupid relieving thing now. And I think that I would assume that Rudius would be the same boat, but I guess it's more the idea that this kind of came out of nowhere. Like he wasn't expecting this. This wasn't what he was thinking would happen that night. It's okay, we're going to the bandit camp, everything cool. No, suddenly now she's a part of our group. What the hell just happened? But you would think that Rudius would kind of find that relieving now because, hate that word now, you would think that Rudius would find that, you would think that that would get rid of a lot of anxiety for Rudius because now he has Ariel at his side and she is the decision maker. In this party, she is the decision maker. So now she can use her wits because obviously she's very clever. She's very smart. She can now use her wits with the steering wheel in her hands. She can point them in the right direction. And she can keep that suspicion from Rudius because he won't have to speak. He won't have to give them suggestions. Ariel will, and nobody will question her. So it's cool. even though Luke did earlier, but not for very long. Anyhow, that's it for this Mushoku Monday. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for this Mushoku Monday. It was great little set of chapters here. As per usual, thank you guys so much for dropping by. Hey, chat, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. As per usual, greatly appreciate your guys' support for dropping by, hitting the like button, being a part of Mushoku Mondays, being here for the premiere, supporting the channel through kind words, spreading the word, telling your friends about Mushoku Mondays. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. And yes, as per usual, I greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, the tips links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. It means so much to me. You guys part with your hard-earned money in order to support keeping this going, keeping the lights on and everything as we travel and continue through the series and eventually getting to 26 and apparently getting into the side chapters that are being published by 7 Seas. Great segue into something that I'm glad I remembered. Please, everybody, I made a video a little while back talking about 7 Seas' announcements for the publishing of the side chapters, all the side volumes. I think the only one they didn't announce was the Old Dragon's Tale. But one of them is being digital only. Please go check out my video that I made on it, but you can probably ask us in the Discord if you don't know the details. But essentially, they are going to be doing a digital only of one of the prints. Please, yes, apparently this is digital only in Japan, but please, this isn't how it has to be. If you let your voice be heard, let 7 Seas know we want a printed edition of this. I would love, like many other people, love to have it in my collection sitting next to everything else, rather than on an ebook somewhere that eventually will close down service and it will disappear. The desire for physical media, for collections, for people that love these collections is big. And that's something that I really, really like the idea of. And I would expect that most everybody else does. So if you have a moment, please make a moment, because it's never going to happen unless everybody does this. Go to 7 Seas website, go to Go Manga, their Twitter account, and find the post for the recollections, which they're going to do digital only. Find their post and tell them, please get a printed edition of this, a physical printed edition of this. Again, I'm expecting that most everybody else would love that as well. And if we don't make our voices heard now, they're not going to do it. Again, because they're assuming, well, Japan did it that way, we'll do it that way, we'll make lots of money by just giving a bunch of zeros and ones at people and make full profit. We want a physical edition. No matter how much it costs, I would love to buy it. So anyways, that's a tangent that I just kind of want to throw in here and let you guys know. But yeah, that's it. Again, thanks everybody for dropping by for the premiere. Until next time, until the next Mushoku Monday, y'all take care. Ugh, Orchid voice. It doesn't strain me, but it's hard to get. It's hard to get down there. Sometimes it's hard to get down in there. She certainly had a better choice. She certainly had a better chance of talking. You won't respect Orchid's. I'm almost done. Come on, Andrew.
The man god. The man god.
The man dog. The man dog. The man dog.
The kingdom of Asura will face an existential. The kingdom of Asura will face an existential. I can't say that with this voice. It's really hard to say this voice.
Even if she was talking about the conflict between, was she talking about the conflict between her and Gabriel? Was she talking about the conflict between her and Gribble? Was she talking about the conflict between? She had some glitch. Was she suggesting? But Ariel could get assassinated in his absence. The bandit plan. The bandit plan was only to. It'll work out in Ariel's advantage.